Hello and welcome to another episode of Thyroid Refresh TV. I'm co-founder and co-host Ginny Mahar.
Hi, and I'm Danna Bowman, co-host and co-founder of Thyroid Refresh as well. And we are joined today by one of my favorite people ever, Aviva Romm. She's amazing. She's been on Thyroid Nation Radio several times, and she's referred to as the face of natural medicine in the 21st century by Prevention Magazine, and named one of the 100 Women to Watch in Wellness by Mind Body Green. Aviva has bridged the best of traditional medicine with good science for over 3 decades. That's incredible. A midwife, herbalist, Yale-trained MD, board certified in family medicine with obstetric. I can't say that word.
Practicing in the love of women.
Yes, okay, that word. Dr. Romm's focus is on the impact of stress on health and hormone imbalance in women. Aviva is a best-selling author of a couple of books, but one of my personal favorites, The Adrenal Thyroid Revolution. I'm so glad she's here with us today. She's one of my favorite people, as I said earlier, and we're going to talk about how to optimize your energy and some simple, healthy habits to go along with that for people suffering with thyroid disease or just anybody.
Thank you, ladies.
Aviva, we're so happy to have you here and talk about energy today, because we feel like as thyroid patients, this is such a huge topic. I mean, it's kind of the topic with thyroid disease. And I feel like we come to have this really deeper understanding of energy and what it means when it can be either taken away or we have too much of it because our thyroids are out of balance. So we're excited to talk about some simple, healthy habits that our listeners can use to live their thyroid-friendly lifestyle. One of the first things I wanted to ask you about is, way back when you were in medical school, as a mother of 4 young kids, which is incredible. You put yourself through Yale Medical School, and that's such an incredible thing to do. And I wondered if you might be able to talk to us about, the energy required of us as women and as mothers in a situation like that, or just moving through life. Do you have any survival tips after going through an experience like that?
It's funny. I always say that moms, once we become a mom, it's sort of like we sleep with one eye open, right? Your sense of vigilance in the world, your awareness, you're really on all the time. And some part of me thinks that because that's really sort of infallible, like you can't, or immalleable, you can't do anything about that, right? Your kids are going to grow, they're going to wake up at night, they're going to need you. It's nonstop. There's a level of acceptance that I think if we can get to that level of acceptance and not fight against that role, that makes it easier. And to some extent, even, I'm very grateful that I haven't struggled with a thyroid problem in my life. But when I work with so many women who do, particularly when they have hypothyroid and they're tired all the time, there's that fatigue. And then there's the struggle against it, right? There's the, I wish I didn't feel this way, the inner fight, the what could I do, the what should I do, what am I doing wrong? And that in itself is exhausting. So I think as a mom, for me, it was almost about settling into the rhythm of knowing that I was on a roller coaster of times that were going to be exhausting, right? A teething baby and you have a toddler, you're not going to get a lot of sleep. So within that, the acceptance, I think for me, for the role just of being a mom, not even the medical student part of it, but just being a mom really helped. And the other part of it was coming to peace about what I realistically could and couldn't accomplish at any given time. And that ebbed and flowed. So, there are times when you're a mom that your kids are more self-engaged and self-entertained. Or if they go to school, there's that day when your kids finally go off to kindergarten and you start to have more time for yourself. I homeschooled, so I didn't have that, but I became more aware of my time and paying attention to how I felt. And so learning to use my time as a precious resource, my energy as a precious resource, and not fight against those times when I couldn't get much done, right? Like if I couldn't write a book or couldn't work on a project or just needed more time to be with my kids, that's what I flowed with. And then when I had more time, I tried to use it really wisely. And similarly, being really comfortable being mindful of my sleep and not feeling like I had to get every single last thing done. You know, when the kids fell asleep, if I fell asleep with the kids because I was tired, then I let myself fall asleep with the kids. If the baby was napping, I really did get good about taking a nap during those times. There's something called sleep banking, which is where it's very hard to catch up on lost sleep. But if we know that we're going to lose sleep, being actually thoughtful about getting extra sleep ahead of time. So for new moms or moms with little kids, if they're still napping, if you know that they're going to wake up at night or something's going to get you up at night, then taking that nap periodically during the day can make a huge difference. And it's not really in some ways that different than having Hashimoto's, because your energy might be unpredictable. And so getting rest when you can, letting yourself have permission to pause when you're tired can all make a huge difference. Throwing the medical school on top of it was just sort of a few years of just doing the best I could to keep up with the demands. And it was before the work hours shifted. So I was still in that 30-hour shift where you knew that at least one night every 4 nights, and on certain rotations, so up to 16 weeks a year, every 3 nights, you were going to lose a full night of sleep. And so it became, how do I actually cope with that? Not how do I get enough sleep, because you just were not going to, but how do I cope with this known stress, this known loss of sleep, and stay healthy? And so then it became about eating really well, you know, keeping my blood sugar steady, not going for the sugar or the chocolate or the candy, which is everywhere in the hospital and, you know, at the nurses' stations and in the vending machines, and not relying on coffee to push myself past my limit, but to really manage my energy as much as I could without anything that was an external stimulant, because that just actually adds to the fatigue and adds to the inflammation. And and then sleeping when I could, you know, even if it was 15 minutes, letting myself get that power nap. Or if I couldn't get sleep, taking a few minutes to hit pause and do some deep breathing. Even a few minutes of meditation can give you a little bit of a reset. And altogether, I think that really helped me get through it and stay healthy.
I love that. That all makes so much sense. And, you know, it all starts with that acceptance. That's such a huge, powerful piece on this healing journey. I feel like that we're all on, because without that, how can you just roll with the challenges that you're faced with, and maybe also make the decision to stop just overriding what your body's telling you.
Yes,
You know,
exactly.
I heard that a lot. You were really, you had to listen to yourself and
Yes.
honor what your needs were.
And
Yeah.
also, I feel like not having the expectations put on yourself, letting go of that. Like, I should have the dishes done, or, you know, this is how it's supposed to be. Letting go of those expectations, I feel like, should be paramount in any plan to try to, you know, especially if you're going to have 4 kids and go to Yale.
And absolutely. I mean, women in general, we tend to put an incredible level of pressure on ourselves to be all for everyone at all times. And many of us are blessed and cursed to have a bit of a perfectionist streak, or a helper streak, or sometimes both, right? So you feel like you have to give and give and give all the time and do everything perfectly. And it's a recipe for burnout. And if you have, I mean, even if you're just a human being without Hashimoto's, it's impossible to live up to that standard. And then you add Hashimoto's into it, and it truly is impossible. But if your mind is still in that I should, and your body's saying there's no way and heck this is happening, then you're in an inner battle with yourself also, and that's exhausting. So if you can take out the inner battle and take out the shoulds, at least then you may have grief or disappointment or frustration at the limitations that you're currently experiencing, but you can be more compassionate and gentle with yourself and give your body the time that it takes to heal. And bodies do heal. And sometimes with Hashimoto's, it takes thyroid hormone supplementation to get that energy back, and that's okay too. But being in the battle against ourselves and against our thyroid, it's never a winning battle.
I love that you said having compassion for your body and yourself, because women really don't do that. And some women don't even know how.
Yeah.
I think that's really, really important, a really important aspect of today's talk, especially because, if we could just kind of, again, it goes to self-care and that kind of thing, but if we can just allow who we are and be okay with that, I think that's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Well, and think of all the energy that's going to free up.
Exactly. It really, and it's interesting because when we look at patterns like perfectionism or how hard we drive ourselves or not getting enough rest, there's no study anywhere that shows that actually helps us do more. And the studies from like behavioral psychology that show better performance are the studies where people actually do give themselves permission to pause. And so like high performance athletes know you can push, but then you have to heal. You have to get a massage to relax your muscles again. You have to eat well. You have to replenish. You have to get extra sleep. There was one study looking at classical violinists who were at the very top of their game, like the 20-year-olds who are playing at Carnegie Hall because they're prodigies. And what the studies that looked at this found were that the people who pushed themselves to practice at the expense of taking a rest or the expense of getting enough sleep actually did not perform as well and have as high career achievement as those who actually let themselves sleep at least 7 hours a night and take a nap. Really interesting, right?
That's a really good fact, because I guess they know they're working their body.
Exactly. Or even if you're working your mind, that takes a lot of energy. So yeah. And I think that none of us kind of grew up thinking, oh, I hope I have a chronic illness that makes me tired all the time. And we have these expectations of ourselves that are very much reinforced by, beautifully curated Facebook pages and social media that give us this expectation that life is supposed to be happy, healthy, energetic, and beautiful all the time. And so I think that there's a level of grief, disappointment, confusion, so many things that when a chronic disease does happen in our lives that are very hard to accept because we want to have more energy. We want to, but it just might not be happening right now.
Right. So your mission and your work, one thing I really loved about this is that it bridges traditional wisdom and modern medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's so powerful and needed right now.
Thank you.
I was wondering if, maybe speaking from both sides of the coin, you could speak to us as thyroid patients about, some kind of nuts and bolts things that we need to be doing to keep ourselves in working order.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So to me, I see all of health and I see all of the options available for healing and for medicine on a spectrum. So things like meditation or prayer or visualization or spirituality or a walk in nature or a hot bath. Those are just some examples of the many healing tools that we have that if you think about a number line, right, a spectrum as a number line, at the very lowest end of intervention, we have these gentle things often that we can do ourselves and often that come from ancient traditional healing practices. And every culture, pretty much except our modern Western cultures, has some form of connecting to nature as part of healing or spirituality or prayer or any of these gentle tools. And then you could think all the way to the extreme other end of the number line, which are things like nuclear medicine, right? Radiation therapies, which for some people who have, for example, hyperthyroidism that is making their lives full of anxiety, lack of sleep, weight loss, just making them miserable and sometimes scary, unwell, you do need radiation ablation. So to me, all of those things are important healing tools. And the trick is to know how and when to use which end of the spectrum, right? And a lot of time, Western medicine tends to jump in at the sort of high end of the spectrum. Like, let's go right to the pharmaceuticals, right to the surgery, right to the radiation therapy. But we know from study after study after study after study that those simple tools often can prevent the need for those more extreme interventions. And those simple tools can be a really powerful reset in chronic disease. Interestingly, statistically, only 20% of all chronic disease happens because of genetics. 80% of it is lifestyle adjustable. We can alter the course of our health with diet, more rest, stress management, not doing things like smoking or drinking excessively, getting some basic exercise. 80% of chronic disease can be prevented with that. And much of it can be, if not completely put into remission, mediated so that it's not quite as severe. So from a nuts and bolts perspective, things that I really encourage all of us to do, and then particularly importantly, if you're trying to restore your energy or manage your energy or take care of yourself with a thyroid problem, bottom line to me is getting enough rest. And so we kind of talked about that already, but there's two kinds of rest. There's the rest of the sleep that we get at night, which is critically important for resetting our stress response, resetting cortisol. Cortisol itself, when cortisol is too high, actually acts as a circuit breaker for the thyroid. So we talk about stress and we're all like, yeah, I know I need to reduce my stress. Or we even brag about, our stress level being so high because we're working so hard. But in reality, when you're amped up on stress, it is actually literally acting as a circuit breaker for the thyroid. I jokingly say to my patients, it's like, when you have too many things plugged in at home and you plug in the blow dryer and then all of a sudden it's like, right? And the circuit breaker gets tripped because your house knows, right? Your house is wired to not overwhelm it with electricity because the house is going to burn down, right? Something's going to short out. When we're living these modern lives of 24/7 go, 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 your body has its own natural circuit breaker from keeping you from burning down the house, basically. And so that's cortisol. So if you're not getting good sleep, if you're living on fumes all the time, and you want to prevent a thyroid problem or help a thyroid problem get better, we have to know that we need to not plug in too many things at one time. So it's about getting good sleep at night so we can reset cortisol, but it's also about taking mini breaks throughout the day, right? You can't go at 1,000 miles an hour and then expect to hit your pillow and get a good night's sleep. Some people can, but most people, it's not like you go from 1,000 to 0, right? So if you can actually take mini breaks throughout the day. And to me, this is a great use of a smartphone. Set your smartphone for like 10 o'clock in the morning and take 15 minutes to hit the pause button. Get some fresh air, take a bio break by going to the bathroom, hydrate, have a good quality, high protein, good fat snack. Do the same thing at lunch, right? Instead of eating your lunch at your keyboard or at your dashboard or while you're walking, actually give yourself at least 30 minutes to stop, taste your food, breathe deep, and get a little reset. And then what I jokingly call the witching hour, not midnight, but like 3 to 4 in the afternoon for most women, because that's when most women have their energy crash. Mm-hmm. Again, preempt it with, healthy foods at lunch. And we're going to talk about that as another nuts and bolts thing in a second. But have that, again, smartphone alarm set for about 3 in the afternoon. Get a good quality snack. Instead of reaching for the coffee or the sugar, have something like a handful of nuts if you eat nuts, or some hummus and vegetables if you eat legumes, or a hard-boiled egg, or nuts and a piece of dark chocolate. That's okay, as long as it's good quality, 72% or more dark chocolate. And get, again, a few minutes of breathing deep, feeling your feet on the ground, checking in with how you feel, maybe some time in nature, at least a little sunshine, talk with a friend, something that resets your energy. That, to me, those two forms of rest are probably the most nuts and bolts things that we can do for our health. And if you're not getting good sleep, do what it takes to get good sleep. There are lots of us who have, my book, The Adrenal Thyroid Revolution, has a whole section on sleep. My blog, tons of articles on how to get better sleep, but super critically important. And the other thing I mentioned, if you're getting that witching hour at 3, 4 in the afternoon where you're just like falling asleep at your desk or dreaming about coffee, sometimes that happens because we're not managing our blood sugar. So the other nuts and bolts thing that we can do to have a huge impact on managing our energy, but also keeping our inflammation low and keeping our blood sugar balanced so that we're not having high insulin, all of which can have a harmful impact on thyroid health, is to make sure that at every meal and at every snack, you're including a really good quality source of protein. It can be fish, chicken, eggs. If you eat red meat, small amounts. We're not talking about an 18-ounce porterhouse steak. We're talking about 4 ounces of red meat, 6 ounces of fish or chicken, or legumes or nuts if you eat those, and a good quality fat. So half an avocado, a tablespoon of olive oil. Nuts are double packed because they've got protein and fat. And getting in the habit of doing that every time you eat so that you're keeping that blood sugar steady, it's amazing how that can transform you from having energy crashes. And even if your thyroid is not giving you, the best bang for your energy buck, you're adding the double whammy of low blood sugar if you're not managing that. So managing that can be transformative. The other thing I would say is making time for pleasure. A lot of us forget pleasure in our lives. To me, it's vitamin P. And particularly if you have a chronic illness and you're spending all your time, as many of my patients do, and many of the women who contact me, it's easy to have your chronic illness become your full-time job, right? You're always on the internet figuring out what you're doing wrong or what you could do better or what you should do differently. And it can start to be, that becomes so consuming that you forget to enjoy the little moments of pleasure or create little moments of pleasure. So even if you're laying on the sofa because you just cannot get up, you just can't get up, you're too tired, watch some stand-up comedy on YouTube or tune into a comedy show that makes you laugh, or take that moment to snuggle with your kiddo on the sofa. Instead of laying there feeling guilty and what a bad mom I am because I can't get up and I can't go to that soccer game or I can't make the homemade dinner, get on the internet and get silly about something with your kid and ordering, takeout together or ordering one of those home delivery services and picking fun food together instead of fighting against it. It's truly, I guess, making lemonade out of lemons. But having those moments of joy and those moments of pleasure. And the thing is, not to break everything down to like physiology, but the reality is that the physiology of connecting with people that we love, the physiology of laughing, the physiology of joy, it truly can reset our immune system. It can reset our cortisol. It can reset so much that in and of itself, it can be commitment to pleasure can be part of healing.
Oh boy.
Wow. These
Yeah.
are some amazing, actionable tips. Thank you so much, Aviva.
Yeah, and it's so important because, I think that so many of us, whether we're trying to prevent illness or live a healthier life or heal from a chronic illness like Hashimoto's or Graves', it can start to get really restrictive, right? Like, I don't do this, I don't do that, I can't do this, I can't do that. So counting on the wins, counting your wins, counting the small things in life, doing the things that bring you joy can really help you get through to the other side.
There's so much there in what you said about the power of lifestyle, and I'm definitely going to start calling my trips to the bathroom bio breaks.
Mm-hmm.
I got that from, I can't remember who I was teaching at a conference with, and someone said bio breaks. And I'm like, what a nice way of saying I have to go pee. And I want to share with viewers, before we got on, Danna said something, what was it? You went like this for a timeout for something that you were talking about. You needed to put a timeout on something. And I looked at you doing that and I was like, that's like the timeout symbol is a T for thyroid. So giving yourself permission to take time out. Remember that T for thyroid. Right. I was like, we got to share that.
Yeah, definitely. One thing I want to mention, and I want to ask you too, is all these great tips and tools and tricks and hacks. It's okay if one day it doesn't work out to where you get to do any of those. Like you beat yourself up, right? Like your day doesn't look perfect like that every single day.
Oh no. I mean, like every human being, I catch myself, right? I'll get up in the morning and I'll say, okay, I'm going to go do yoga. And then I'll be like 10 minutes into yoga. Like I use Yoga Glow and I'll be 10 minutes into it going, I'm too busy. I can't do yoga. I have to go get something done. And I have to catch myself and push myself to be like, that's nuts, right? Like that's not okay when you catch yourself in those messages. No, I have days where, I would say that for me, I've been eating healthy, if you will, since I was 15 and I just turned 52. So for me, it's like breathing or taking a bio break. It's just so natural for me, but it's hard work if you're just learning to eat well. Sleep. Sometimes I'm in a launch on a program or writing a book. Last year I had 2 years ago when I was, ironically, the irony of how life happens, I was writing the Adrenal Thyroid Revolution and I was, it was like 8:00 at night. I had a deadline. I had 3 months to write this book, start to finish. 3 months, this long story. And I'm not an alcohol drinker at all. I just don't drink. I don't like how alcohol makes me feel. And I'm not a huge coffee drinker. It's become more a part of my life. In recent years, my husband loves coffee, so now I enjoy it with him, but not at night. And it was 8:00 at night and I had a glass of wine and a cup of coffee on the desk in front of me. Like, which one am I going to do? And I remember seeing, I'm so sorry, as this is so embarrassing, I'm blanking on his name. The Whole30 guy. Yeah, him. Melissa and
Melissa Hartwig and
Dallas and I we are in each other's Facebook feed. And I went on Facebook the next day and Dallas had a picture of himself with a cup of coffee and a glass of wine saying, has anybody ever done this? And I was like, yeah, last night.
Me.
So it happens, but for me, it's about paying attention to my body so that I don't let myself get too pushed to the edge. So yeah, I have lots of not perfect days. I don't think there's really a perfect day. I think it's life, and things ebb and they flow, but trying to be mindful to do something every day for yourself. That is, there's a saying that if you don't take care of your body, where you're going to live. Yeah. Thinking about it as becoming the new normal, to have most days be healthy eating, most days be good sleep, most days be some self-care. I call it the 95-5 rule. You hear about 80-20. To me, it's 95-5. Like you try to do right by your body, by your health, by your spirit 95% of the time. And if you do that 5% of the time, you can pretty much get away with just about anything.
Well, and look at you. You look amazing.
You do.
Oh, thank you.
The 95-5 rule. It can be easy to, I think I started at 80-20 and now I'm at I usually say it's 90-10. I can't really afford 80-20 anymore, but.
Yeah, I think 80-20 is not going to work for most people. If you think about eating 20% junk food or 20% of the time not getting good sleep, that's a lot, but 90-10 that's a sweet spot. That's great.
Well, it's been so wonderful to chat with you, Aviva. We really appreciate it. And I know our listeners and viewers are so grateful for all the amazing, actionable tips that you shared with us today. Just to kind of review in a nutshell, blood sugar balance.
Yep.
Right. Permission to pause.
Yes.
Give yourself that permission to have your vitamin P for the day. I love that.
And pleasure.
And the third one was sleep. Is that
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Prioritizing sleep and making sure that we get the rest we need and don't just override our body's, directives. They speak to us, right?
So true. So true. Ladies, I love what you're doing. So thank you for having me join you today.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're so happy to have you, and we are united on this amazing mission together. So
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you.
Hey guys, Danna and Ginny here. We hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please don't forget to click like and subscribe.
And we have a great free resource for you below. Just click the link. Thanks for watching.